Some minds don't sleep, they remember.
Marriage, a journey that begins with fiery vows, brilliant dreams of a shared future, and smiles brimming with hope. It's the moment two hearts beat as one, promising to navigate all of life's storms together. But what happens when sweet words of love gradually give way to silence? Not the peaceful silence of wordless understanding, but a heavy, suffocating silence where hurts go unspoken. Questions are never dared to be asked, and suppressed emotions quietly gnaw at the hearts of both people. This is the silent battlefield of modern marriages, where there are no gunshots or smoke, but the invisible wounds can be deep enough to shatter love. Tonight, we won't talk about grand dramas, shocking betrayals, or loud arguments. We will confront a much more subtle enemy, the invisible cuts, those small but repetitive moments that silently destroy the connection between two people who once loved each other deeply. Join me on a journey to explore the silent secrets of the heart, where the truth can be as painful as a knife's edge, but can also be the key to healing and rediscovering lost love. Don't forget to like and subscribe to dive deep into the emotional stories of the soul, where every step is a chance to understand ourselves and the person beside us better. Silently wounded, the silence in marriage. Imagine a typical evening in a familiar home. Two people sit in the same room, the light from the TV casting onto their emotionless faces. One person scrolls through their phone, fingers swiping past meaningless posts, eyes glued to the screen as if searching for something to fill the void. The other holds a book, but their gaze isn't truly on the words. Lost instead in nameless thoughts. They are together, yet the distance between their souls seems to stretch for thousands of miles. There are no arguments, no loud words, no clear conflict. There is only silence, a silence that brings no comfort, but rather distance, suffocation, and sometimes pain. This is the battlefield of modern marriages, where the battles are fought not with words, but with their absence. People often think a relationship only breaks because of major events, a devastating lie, an unforgivable act of betrayal, or a fiery argument. But the truth is, marriage often doesn't collapse in a single moment, disintegrates through hundreds, thousands of tiny moments. The times one isn't heard, the times emotions are dismissed, the times the connection is neglected. It is death by 1,000 cuts, small wounds repeated day after day, silently eroding the love, trust, and intimacy that once formed the foundation of the relationship. Let's look at these invisible cuts, these tiny moments with devastating power. They aren't often intentional or malicious acts, but rather unconscious habits, small behaviors we easily overlook, yet they leave a deep mark on the other person's heart. It might be a sigh when one person excitedly shares about their workday. That sigh might just come from fatigue, from a long, stressful day, or a mind preoccupied with its own worries, but to the other person it feels like a message. What you're saying isn't important. You aren't important. They might smile and continue their story, but a small cut has appeared, silent yet sharp. It might be the moment one person scrolls through their phone, while the other is sharing an idea, story, or a deep feeling. Perhaps they are just answering a work email, checking a message, or mindlessly browse social media. But to the person speaking, that action sends a signal. What you are sharing is not worthy of my attention. The world in this phone is more important than you. That cut, though small, deepens the distance. Or it's a small promise, like I'll be home early tonight, spoken easily, but then just as easily broken. The issue isn't being late. Sometimes work, traffic, or unexpected situations don't allow it. The issue is the feeling of being taken for granted, the feeling that a promise made to the other person isn't important enough to be kept. Each time a promise is broken, another cut is added, and the wall between them grows a little higher. These moments, when they stand alone, seem too small to bother with. If brought up, one might feel they are overreacting, being too sensitive. What's the big deal? Or don't be so sensitive, it was just one time. And so, instead of confronting it, we choose silence, swallow these hurts, telling ourselves we probably misunderstood, that it's better to let it go to keep the peace, that speaking up will only complicate things. But the truth is, unspoken hurts don't disappear. They accumulate, fermenting in the darkness of silence, turning into resentment, distance, and finally, loneliness. It is the most terrible kind of loneliness, being lonely right next to the person you once loved most, the person you promised to walk through all of life's challenges with. The two still live together, but they no longer touch each other, not just physically, but emotionally. Silence in a marriage is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of connection, of understanding, of the courage to say the hard things and listen to the painful ones. When we choose silence instead of facing small hurts, we unintentionally build a wall between two people. That wall doesn't appear overnight. It's built brick by brick, through sighs, averted gazes, broken promises, and moments where one person feels unseen, unappreciated. When that wall becomes too high, breaking it down seems like an impossible task, and the two people, though still together, feel like strangers. Take a moment and think about your own relationship. Is there a small hurt that keeps repeating? Behavior, a word, or a moment that makes you feel wounded but you've never truly spoken up about it? Perhaps it's a small pebble in your shoe, silently hurting you with every step, but you choose to keep walking without stopping to take it out. Do you recognize it? More importantly, have you chosen silence? Or have you found a way to face it? Are there moments in your relationship where you wish you had spoken up, had shared instead of letting silence take over? These silent wounds are the source of all cracks in a marriage. They are not loud, not dramatic, but their destructive power cannot be underestimated. They are like tiny cracks in a pane of glass, at first just a faint line, but if left unrepaired, they will spread until the entire pane shatters. How do we break down the wall of silence and find the connection that has been lost? In the next part, we will explore a concept that is familiar but often misunderstood. Forgiveness. Forgiveness in marriage is not just about overlooking mistakes or pretending they never happened. It is the journey of learning to listen to what hasn't been said, understanding hidden emotions, and rebuilding the trust that has been shaken. We will look at real stories of couples who chose to confront the silence instead of letting it destroy their love. They found a way to say the hard things, listen to the painful ones, and walk through the wounds together to find intimacy again. Leave your thoughts below. In your relationship, what is the small hurt you have remained silent about? Is there a moment you want to share when you chose to speak up and it changed everything, or when you wish you had? A like and a subscription will show that you are with me on this journey to explore the mysteries of the heart and soul, where every story is a chance to better understand ourselves and the person beside us. Forgiveness is not acceptance, it is a choice. Marriage, with its emotional vows and dreams of a shared future, often leads us down silent corridors where small hurts accumulate and invisible cuts erode our connection. In the previous part, we explored those silent moments, the sighs, the averted gazes, the broken promises, and how they silently destroy a relationship. But after recognizing these wounds, the biggest question remains, how do we heal? How do we move past repetitive hurts without letting them define our relationship? The answer is often given simply, like a miracle cure: forgiveness. But what is forgiveness really? Tonight, we will strip away the idealized veneer of this word to look deep into its essence. It is not about ignoring, not about enduring, but a conscious choice that requires courage, understanding, and a profound shift in how we see our partner. In the context of American life, where a hectic pace and daily pressures can widen these invisible gaps, the journey of forgiveness becomes even more urgent and challenging. Forgiveness. The word sounds so noble, evoking images of magnanimity, altruism, and a heart large enough to embrace all mistakes. But in reality, especially in a long-term relationship like marriage, forgiveness is often misunderstood, twisted into distorted versions that not only fail to heal, but actually deepen the wounds. The first distorted version is ignoring. This is when a person chooses to overlook a problem to avoid conflict. Imagine an evening in a Chicago suburb after a long workday. Your partner comes home late from the office again without notice, missing the dinner you carefully prepared. You feel a small pang in your heart, but instead of saying something, you tell yourself, "It's not worth it. It'll just lead to a fight. I'm too tired." You turn up the volume on Netflix, scroll through Instagram longer, or clean the kitchen just to avoid thinking about the feeling of being let down. But ignoring is not forgiveness. A wound that is ignored does not disappear. It silently becomes infected, builds into resentment, and quietly pushes people further apart. The second, more dangerous version is enduring. This is when you recognize the problem, feel the pain clearly, but instead of addressing it, you choose to accept it as an inevitable part of marriage. In a city like New York, where financial and work pressures can weigh heavily on both partners, you might tell yourself, "This is just how marriage is. Have to put up with it." When your partner repeatedly forgets to call back after canceling dinner plans, you embrace the pain, seeing it as proof of your love and sacrifice. But enduring is not strength. It is a slow-acting poison that erodes self-worth, turns love into a burden, and makes you feel increasingly small in your own relationship. True forgiveness is not ignoring, nor is it enduring. Forgiveness is a conscious act, a choice that requires the courage to look directly at the pain and decide not to let it control the relationship. It's not about easily saying it's okay, but about daring to face it and declare, "This really hurt me, but I choose not to let this pain define our love and our future." Forgiveness is not a natural feeling that arrives like a cool breeze on a California summer day, not something you feel instantly when the pain is still raw. Instead, forgiveness is a choice, a difficult choice that demands bravery and a profound shift in perspective. In the US, where individualistic culture often encourages us to protect our own feelings first, choosing to forgive can feel unjust. We often fall into the trap of waiting. When they apologize, when they change, then I'll forgive. We place the key to our own peace in someone else's hands and wait for something that may never come. But what if that apology never comes? Or if that change never happens, you let yourself be trapped in resentment and pain forever. True, liberating forgiveness does not begin with the other person's actions. It begins with you, by changing how you view the actions that hurt you. Instead of only seeing your own pain, try asking the question, what led them to act this way? Not to excuse it, but to understand it. Think about the moments that hurt you, when your partner was silent as you shared a story about your workday in Seattle. Perhaps it wasn't because they didn't care, but because they were overwhelmed by a major project at their company. Or because they grew up in a family where showing emotion was seen as a sign of weakness. When they nagged you about forgetting to take out the trash in your suburban Atlanta home, perhaps it wasn't because they wanted to control you, but because they were feeling insecure, shouldering too many family responsibilities, and nagging was the only way they knew how to express their helplessness. The actions that hurt you are often not aimed at you, but are reflections of their own pressures, fears, or misguided lessons from their past. When you start to see it this way, something magical can happen. Your anger might not vanish instantly, but it will begin to subside. In its place, another emotion will start to sprout. Compassion. You begin to see your partner not as an enemy, but as a fellow traveler who is also struggling with their own pressures, fears, and wounds. Maybe financial stress in an expensive city like San Francisco, or the anxiety of balancing work and family. This compassion doesn't erase the pain, but it opens a path for you to move toward forgiveness without waiting for an apology. Forgiveness begins with understanding, but understanding does not mean accepting all hurtful behavior. It means you choose to look deeper into the reasons behind those actions, not to justify them, but to find a way to heal. When you understand that the other person's behavior often stems from their own limitations or wounds, you can start to separate your pain from their intention. This doesn't make their behavior right, but it helps you escape the cycle of resentment and opens the door for dialogue. Think of a couple in Austin, Texas, John and Sarah, married for 12 years. John often felt hurt because Sarah would interrupt his stories to talk about her work at a tech company. He felt like what he said had no value. But instead of staying silent or exploding, John decided to share his feelings one quiet evening after the kids were in bed. In a frank conversation, he discovered that Sarah wasn't intentionally dismissing him. She did it because the pressure of constant meetings and tight deadlines made her feel the need to speak immediately to relieve stress. When John understood this, he no longer saw Sarah's behavior as a personal attack. They started to find better ways to communicate. Sarah learned to listen more, and John learned to recognize her signs of stress. Through this, they realized that forgiveness isn't about ignoring the problem, but about learning to understand and change together. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It requires you to dare to face the pain, to question the reasons behind the other person's behavior, and to choose not to let those hurts control your relationship. In the American context, where the fast pace of life and pressures from work, finances, or family can increase misunderstandings, the journey of forgiveness is even more crucial. It isn't easy, and sometimes it feels unfair. Why should you be the one trying to understand when you are the one who was hurt? But this forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for you, so that you can find peace and open the door for love to be healed. I know this sounds difficult, especially when you're living in a busy world where time for a real conversation can be a luxury. Forgiveness is not a switch you can flip on and off, but a process that requires time, patience, and sometimes a little courage. But tonight I want to invite you to try a small experiment in your mind. Think about a small hurt your partner has recently caused you. Maybe when they forgot to call back after canceling a movie date in Los Angeles, or when they accidentally dismissed a story you told about your workday in Boston. Instead of just focusing on your own pain, try, just for a moment, to ask yourself, what in them, a work pressure, a financial worry, or an old wound, might have caused them to act that way? Do you see anything different? Is there a moment when understanding begins to change how you feel about the pain? Leave your thoughts below. Have you ever tried to understand your partner in a moment of hurt? What did it change in you or in your relationship? Like and a subscription will show that you are with me on the journey to explore the difficult but meaningful path of forgiveness. In the next part, we will dive deeper into how to listen to what is not being said, the emotions, fears, and desires hidden in the silence. We will explore how to turn difficult conversations into bridges for healing, so that two people can not only live beside each other, but truly touch each other once again, even in the hectic pace of America. what they don't say, and what you feel. Marriage is a journey filled with silent moments, where small hurts can build into invisible walls, separating two people who once loved each other deeply. In the previous part, we explored the power of forgiveness, not as ignoring or enduring, but as a conscious choice to understand and not let pain define the relationship. But even after you've chosen to forgive, a practical and challenging question remains. How do you forgive when the other person doesn't even say they're sorry? How do you mend a relationship when silence seems to be all you receive? Tonight, we will step deeper into a complex truth of marriage. Sometimes the most sincere apologies are not spoken in words. In the context of America's hectic pace, where work and family pressures often make communication difficult, learning to hear these silent apologies may be the key to healing, or at least to finding peace within yourself. Let's start with a potentially controversial statement. When someone doesn't apologize, it doesn't mean they aren't sorry. In American culture, where direct communication is often praised, we easily assume that a sincere apology must be clearly articulated. I'm sorry, or I messed up. 3 simple words, a familiar formula, like a necessary ritual to soothe the pain. But people are not that simple, and in a long-term relationship, apologies are not always packaged in words. For many people, saying the words, "I'm sorry," is a bigger challenge than meeting a tight deadline at work. Why? It could be ego, a pride that doesn't want to admit a mistake, especially in a society where individual success is often prioritized. But more often, the reason is deeper and more fragile. Perhaps they grew up in a Boston suburb where expressing emotion was seen as a weakness, and saying "I'm sorry" was equivalent to exposing vulnerability. Or perhaps they fear that if they open up and admit their fault, they will be judged, criticized, or worse, pushed away. These fears, though unspoken, can lead them to choose silence, not out of carelessness, but because they don't know how to express their regret. And so, they choose another language, the language of actions, of small gestures, of implicit apologies. Forgiveness in these cases begins with learning to listen to what is not said. It requires you to open your heart to recognize the messages hidden behind the silence. The quiet efforts to mend things even if they don't match the apology script you were expecting. Imagine an evening in Denver, Colorado, after a stressful work week. You and your partner had a huge fight the night before in your small Lodo apartment. Hurtful words were said, doors were slammed, and the air in the house is as heavy as lead. You both sit in silence, each in your own corner, imprisoned by your own anger and ego. You wake up the next morning still feeling heavy, not wanting to talk. You walk into the kitchen, and your partner is already there quietly making breakfast. Not a word of explanation, not a direct glance. But on the table is a plate of scrambled eggs, made just the way you like them. A little crispy on the edges, with just the right amount of salt and pepper. Next to it is a cup of coffee, brewed exactly how you drink it, with a splash of cream and no sugar. What is that? Just a normal breakfast on a Saturday morning? Or is it a wordless apology, message sent through small actions? I know I was wrong last night. I'm not good at talking about my feelings, but I still love you, and I want to do something to take care of you. In the busy pace of American life, where both partners might be chasing careers or family responsibilities, an act like this can carry more weight than a hastily spoken apology. Or consider another situation in a suburban home in Atlanta, Georgia. Your partner said something that deeply hurt you during an argument about who would take the kids to soccer practice over the weekend. For the rest of the day, you don't speak a word to each other, a wall of ice between you. In the evening, you're sitting on the sofa, flipping through a game on TV. Your partner walks into the room, pacing back and forth as if looking for something. Then they stop and ask a seemingly irrelevant question. Where's the TV remote? Point to it right on the table in front of them. Let out a small "oh." Then sit down on the sofa, but not in the far corner like they usually would. They sit a little closer to you, just enough for you to feel their presence, but not so close as to feel suffocating. What is that? A silly question about the remote? Or is it an invitation, a hesitant attempt to break the ice wall, coded apology? I know I hurt you. I don't know how to start over, but I want to be near you. I want us to try again. Can you meet me halfway? In a society like America's, where direct emotional expression can sometimes be suppressed by the pressure to appear strong, small gestures like these might be the only way a person knows how to express remorse. Of course, not all silence carries good intentions. There is silence that stems from carelessness, from a lack of concern for the other person's feelings. There is punitive silence, used as a way to control or inflict deeper pain. The art here is learning to discern, to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart and your intuition. Does the other person's action carry a hint of effort and intention to mend things? Or is it just a repetition of indifference? Think of a couple in Seattle, Washington, Alex and Taylor, married for 8 years. Alex often felt hurt because Taylor never apologized after forgetting to call back when busy with work at a tech company. But one evening after a tense argument, Alex noticed that Taylor had silently cleaned the entire kitchen. A chore Alex usually had to do alone. Taylor said nothing, but the action made Alex pause. In a later conversation, Alex discovered that Taylor grew up in a family where apologies were rarely spoken, and actions were how they showed they cared. As Alex learned to hear these silent apologies, they began to rebuild their connection, one step at a time. Listening to unspoken apologies requires patience and sensitivity. It requires you to temporarily set aside your expectations of a perfect apology script and open your heart to recognize the other person's efforts, however small. In the American context, where pressure from work, finances, family responsibilities can reduce the time for deep conversations, recognizing these gestures can be the bridge that brings two people back together. Recognizing a silent apology is a crucial step, but how you respond to it is just as important. You can choose to ignore it, letting the hurt and your ego keep you in silence. Or you can choose to respond, not by demanding a clear apology, but by opening a door to reconnect. It could be a gentle smile as you sit down for breakfast, a light touch of the hand as you pass them the TV remote, or a simple question like, "How was your day?" These small actions can be your way of saying, "I hear you. I want to try again too." Think about your own relationship. Has there been a moment when your partner apologized to you without using words? Small act, a hesitant gesture, but you felt the regret and love behind it. How did you respond? Did you open your heart to receive it, or did you miss it because you were waiting for the perfect words? In your busy life, whether in a city like Chicago or a small town in Ohio, these moments could be the key to breaking down the wall of silence and finding intimacy again. I know that listening for silent apologies is not easy, especially when you are hurt or when the daily rhythm of American life, with work, kids, and bills to pay, makes it hard to stop and feel. But tonight, I want to invite you to try a small experiment. Think about a recent moment when your partner did something that hurt you, but afterward, they made a small gesture. Maybe they fixed the shelf you've been complaining about in your Philadelphia home, or silently brought home your favorite takeout from a restaurant in Miami. Ask yourself, could that be their way of trying to say, "I'm sorry"? Can you see anything different if you recognize a silent apology? Are you willing to respond to begin healing? Leave your thoughts below. Have you ever recognized a wordless apology from your partner? How did you respond? And what did that change in your relationship? Liking a subscription will show you are with me on this journey to explore the silent secrets of the heart, or unspoken things can have the power to heal. In the next part, we will confront a more difficult truth. When forgiveness, however sincere, is not enough to save a marriage that has too many cracks. But even in those moments, forgiveness can still save one person, you, by helping you find peace and the strength to move forward. When forgiveness doesn't save the marriage, but it saves you. Marriage, with its emotional vows and dreams of a shared future, is a journey of hope, but also of challenges. We have walked through the silent corridors of silence, where small hurts accumulate. We have learned to listen for unspoken apologies. Choosing forgiveness is an act of understanding and compassion. But sometimes, even when you have forgiven, even when you have tried your best to mend things, the relationship still cannot be saved. Tonight, we will face a difficult but liberating truth. Forgiveness does not always save a marriage, but it can always save you. In the context of the busy American lifestyle, where social pressures and expectations of a perfect marriage can weigh heavily on every decision, forgiving in order to let go can be a courageous act that helps you find yourself again and move forward with peace. In American culture, where romantic love stories are often painted by movies and media, from Hollywood films to social media posts about couple goals, it's easy to be drawn into the belief that forgiveness must equate to saving the relationship. We think that if we've forgiven, we must stay, we must continue as if nothing happened. We must cling to the forever together vow at all costs. But that is not true forgiveness. That is a self-imposed prison sentence, where you force yourself to live in a relationship that no longer fits, just for fear of being judged by society as a quitter or someone who is unforgiving. True forgiveness is an internal act, a choice to free yourself from resentment and pain. It is not a commitment to stay, but a commitment to allow yourself to be free. Resentment is like a poison you drink every day, hoping the other person will feel the pain. It erodes your soul, turning you into a bitter, tired version of yourself. Forgiveness is the decision to stop drinking that poison, not for the other person, but for you, so that you can move forward with lightness and inner strength. Imagine a woman named Emily living in San Francisco, California. She had been married to Michael for 10 years. Michael was not a bad husband. He wasn't abusive. He didn't cheat. He was always absent, even when sitting next to her in their small apartment in the Mission District. Every time Emily tried to share about her day at a startup, Michael would be glued to his phone, scrolling through Twitter or checking work emails. When she suggested a walk in Golden Gate Park on the weekend, he would often reply, "I'm too tired. Maybe next time." Never remembered their anniversary, even when Emily had reminded him beforehand. For years Emily tried. She tried talking, but Michael would just nod and promise to try harder. She tried being silent, hoping he would realize it on his own. She got angry, she cried, and she read countless books on marriage. From the 5 love languages, 2 articles on Psychology Today. She forgave Michael's thoughtlessness, telling herself he was stressed from financial pressure in an expensive city like San Francisco. She forgave his forgetfulness, thinking that maybe men just weren't good at remembering special dates. But no matter how many times she forgave, nothing changed. Michael was still Michael, a good housemate, but not the partner she needed. One evening after Michael had forgotten their dinner plans again, Emily sat down in her small living room, looking out at the city lights. She realized a painful truth. For the past 10 years, she had spent all her energy trying to fix Michael, to save this marriage. In the process, she had lost herself. She couldn't remember the last time she genuinely laughed. She couldn't remember that she used to be passionate about painting or hiking in the Marin headlands. She had become a shadow of herself, living to maintain a relationship that no longer brought joy. That night, Emily wrote a letter to Michael. She didn't write about his mistakes, didn't blame or criticize. Instead, she wrote about forgiveness. She wrote, "I forgive you, not because I accept how you've treated me, but because I understand that this is probably the best way you know how to love. I forgive you because I don't want to carry this resentment anymore. I also forgive myself for fighting for so long in a battle that only I was fighting." The next morning, Emily left, not with bitterness, but with peace. She started over, not because she had stopped loving Michael, but because she had learned to love herself again. Emily's story might make you wonder, is a broken marriage a failure in American society, where family values are often praised and divorce can sometimes carry a stigma? Leaving a marriage can feel like an admission of defeat. But for Emily, it was not a failure. It was a liberation. She walked out of the marriage with understanding about her own limits, about what she truly needed in a relationship, and about the value of self-love. Forgiveness in this case was not about clinging to a lost relationship, but the courage to let go, to open a new chapter in her life. Forgiving to let go doesn't mean you're giving up on love or the vows you made. It means you recognize that love is not always enough to sustain a healthy relationship. In the American context, where financial, work, and social pressures can increase marital stress, recognizing when to let go is an act of self-awareness and courage. You not only forgive the other person for the hurt they caused, but you also forgive yourself for trying, for hoping, and for believing you could change the unchangeable. Forgiving to let go is a liberating act, but it also comes with challenges. In American culture, where divorce is often seen as an endpoint, you may face feelings of guilt, fear of judgment, or anxiety about starting over. But forgiveness is not just about freeing you from resentment. It's also about finding yourself again. It allows you to step out of an unhealthy relationship with peace instead of bitterness. It helps you realize that the end of a relationship is not a failure, but a valuable lesson about what you need to be happy. Think of a man in Chicago, David, who spent 15 years in a marriage where he felt increasingly isolated. His wife, Lisa, wasn't a bad person, but she had become distant, busy with her career and community activities, leaving David feeling like a stranger in his own home. After years of forgiving and trying, David decided that leaving was the only way for both of them to find happiness again. He forgave Lisa, not to stay, but to move on without carrying resentment. Today, David is relearning how to play the guitar, a passion he had abandoned since college, and he feels like he is finding himself again. Forgiving to let go is a courageous act, but it is not easy, especially in a society where family values are often held in high regard. Tonight I invite you to try a small experiment. Think about a relationship in your life, maybe a marriage, or another relationship where you have tried your best but still feel you cannot continue. Ask yourself, if I were to forgive, not to stay, but to free myself from resentment, what would that change in me? Can you imagine yourself walking away from that relationship with peace, with new lessons about yourself instead of with bitterness? Leave your thoughts below. Have you ever had to forgive in order to let go? How did it help you find yourself again? A like and a subscription will show that you are with me on this journey of exploring the path of healing, where forgiveness is not just about saving a relationship, but about saving yourself. In the next part, we will explore how to forgive without losing yourself, how to set healthy boundaries, protect your self-worth, and build a future where you can love without fear. How to forgive without losing yourself. Marriage is a journey of emotional highs and lows, from the brilliant moments of love to the silent corridors of hurt. We have walked through the crucial steps, identifying the invisible cuts, Learning to forgive is a conscious choice, and listening for unspoken apologies. In the previous part, we faced the difficult truth that forgiveness doesn't always save a marriage, but it can always free you. But the big question remains: how do you forgive without feeling like you've lost a part of yourself? How do you forgive while preserving your self-respect, your self-worth, and your faith in the future? Tonight, we will explore the art of mindful forgiveness, a journey that not only helps you heal, but also helps you find yourself again, especially within the context of America's busy lifestyle and social pressures. In American culture, where romantic stories on the Hollywood screen and happily ever after Instagram posts often shape our expectations, we easily fall into the illusion that forgiveness must lead to a perfect ending. We think that after forgiving, everything will go back to how it was in the beginning. The cracks will disappear, the pain will be erased, and the relationship will be as if it was never hurt. But life is not a Hallmark movie. A broken vase, no matter how skillfully glued back together, will always have its seams, its scars. That's okay. Those scars are not signs of failure or weakness. They're testaments to your resilience, to the journey you have weathered a storm and emerged stronger. Forgiveness is not about pretending the scars don't exist, but about learning to look at them without feeling pain. In the American context, where the pressure to maintain a perfect image, from a happy family to a successful career, is immense, accepting these scars is a courageous act, a way of affirming that your value lies not in perfection, but in your ability to heal and grow. Forgiveness is an internal act, a gift you give yourself to find peace. But it does not mean you have to accept all hurtful behavior or remain in a relationship that is no longer healthy. A crucial part of mindful forgiveness is learning to set emotional boundaries, clear limits to protect your self-worth and your mental health. Think of a couple in Austin, Texas, Mia and Ethan, married for 7 years. Mia often felt hurt because Ethan constantly canceled their weekend plans to work late at a startup. After forgiving him many times, Mia realized she needed to set a boundary. She would continue to love and understand Ethan, but she also needed his time and presence in the relationship. She clearly told Ethan that she would stop making plans if he couldn't commit to them. This boundary was not a punishment, but Mia's way of protecting her self-respect, while also opening an opportunity for Ethan to better understand the impact of his behavior. Emotional boundaries do not contradict forgiveness. You can forgive the other person for the hurt they caused, but still have the right to decide whether the relationship, in its current state, is still right for you. In the American context, where the fast pace of life and work pressures can lead couples to neglect each other's needs, setting boundaries is a way of saying, I forgive you, but I also love myself enough to know what is best for me. Mindful forgiveness is not a miracle that happens overnight. It is a conscious process with specific steps that help you heal without losing yourself. Here are 3 steps to do just that, designed to fit into the busy lives of Americans, where time for self-reflection can be a luxury. Step 1. Acknowledge and allow your feelings to exist. In the US, hustle culture often encourages us to be strong or get over pain quickly. But you cannot heal a wound you pretend doesn't exist. Allow yourself to fully feel the emotions, anger, sadness, disappointment, without judgment. If you live in a city like New York where everyone seems to be in a rush, take a quiet moment, perhaps on the subway or in a small park, to write down your feelings. Journal, scream into a pillow in your Chicago apartment, or cry in your car on the way home in Los Angeles. Emotions need to be released, like water needs to flow, so they don't break you from the inside. Step 2. Clearly name the hurt. Resentment is often vague, like a heavy cloud that makes you uncomfortable without knowing exactly why. To let go, you need to identify precisely what hurt you. Sit down, maybe in a coffee shop in Seattle or on your couch at home in Atlanta, and ask yourself, what really hurt me? It's not just they forgot our anniversary. It's when they forgot, I felt unappreciated, like I was invisible in this relationship. Naming the hurt turns a vague emotion into a concrete fact, and you can only forgive what is concrete. This is especially important in the American context, where the pressure to keep it all together can make you ignore your true feelings. Step 3. Let go of the need to be understood. This is the hardest step, but also the most liberating. We often get stuck in the thought, I can only forgive when they understand how much they hurt me. But in reality, especially in a diverse society like America, where everyone brings different experiences and communication styles, the other person may never fully understand your pain, and that's okay. Mindful forgiveness is realizing that you do not need their approval or understanding to heal. You can forgive someone in San Francisco for being thoughtless, even if they never recognize the impact of their behavior. You do it to free yourself, so you are no longer trapped in an endless weight. Mindful forgiveness is not just about letting go of resentment. It is the journey of finding yourself again. In the American context, where social pressure might make you feel you have to maintain a perfect marriage or fear being judged for failure, forgiving without losing yourself is a brave act. It requires you to recognize your own worth, set healthy boundaries, and decide whether the relationship is still a place where you can grow. Think of a man in Miami, Florida, named James. After 12 years of marriage, James realized that his wife Olivia had become increasingly distant, prioritizing her career and social life over time with him. Instead of letting resentment build, James followed the 3 steps. He acknowledged his hurt, named the feeling of being abandoned, and decided to forgive without waiting for Olivia to change. He set a boundary by clearly stating that he needed a relationship with presence and connection. When Olivia couldn't meet that need, James chose to leave, not with bitterness, but with peace. Today, James is rediscovering his passion for surfing, a hobby he had long forgotten, and he feels like he is truly living again. Mindful forgiveness is a journey that requires patience, especially in a country like the US, where the fast pace of life and social pressures can make you feel like you have to fix everything immediately. Tonight I invite you to try a small experiment. Think of a hurt in your relationship, maybe being dismissed during an evening in Denver or a broken promise in Boston. Follow the 3 steps. Write down your feelings, give the hurt a specific name, and ask yourself if you can let go of the need to be understood by the other person. What do you feel after trying this? Does it help you feel lighter, even just a little? Leave your thoughts below. In your journey of forgiveness, which step is the hardest for you? Allowing feelings, naming the hurt, or letting go of the need to be understood? Have you ever forgiven while still holding on to yourself? A like and a subscription will show that you are with me on this journey to explore the art of forgiveness. Not to go back to the way things were, but to find yourself again, stronger and more whole. In the final part, we will explore the deepest meaning of forgiveness, not just as a way to heal a relationship, but as a journey of quiet growth, where you learn to love without fear and live a life true to your own values. Forgiveness asks a form of quiet growth. Marriage is a journey of emotional highs and lows, from the brilliant moments of love to the silent corridors of hurt and silence. We have walked through the crucial steps, identifying the invisible cuts, learning to forgive as a conscious choice, listening for unspoken apologies, and understanding that sometimes forgiveness doesn't save a marriage, but it can always save you. In the previous part, we explored mindful forgiveness, setting boundaries to protect yourself without losing your self-worth. But the final question remains, why do we forgive? Tonight, in the final part of our journey, we will focus not on the how, but on the why. The reason that makes forgiveness a form of quiet growth, a journey that not only heals a relationship, but also helps you mature as a person, especially in the context of America's busy lifestyle and social pressures. When we are young, love is often demanding. You love someone and expect them to make you happy, to understand everything you don't say, to fulfill every desire on your long list of expectations. In American culture, where romantic movies and social media often paint a picture of perfect love, it's easy to enter marriage with the belief that your partner must be perfect, must always do the right thing. When they fail to meet those expectations, you feel hurt, betrayed, and resentment begins to creep in. But as you mature, through years of scars and lessons, you realize that your partner, just like you, is not a perfect deity. They carry their own fears, weaknesses, and wounds from the past. Maybe from a childhood in Chicago where emotions were suppressed, or from financial pressure in New York that keeps them constantly stressed. Quiet growth begins when you understand that true love is not about finding a perfect person, but about learning to love an imperfect person completely. Forgiveness is the language of mature love. It's not about saying you were wrong, but I'll overlook it. Instead, it's about saying, I understand that you are struggling just like I am. We are both imperfect, but we are trying to do the best we can. In the American context, where the pressure to succeed and keep things perfect can make you feel like a failure when facing cracks in your marriage, forgiveness is an act of empathy and equality. It transforms the relationship from a courtroom of judgment into a shared journey of two imperfect people, learning to love and heal together. Forgiveness is not a condescending act, but a gift you give to yourself. In the hectic pace of American life, where you can get caught up in work, bills, and family responsibilities, resentment is like a heavy backpack you carry every day. It exhausts you, turning you into a bitter version of yourself. Forgiveness is the decision to take off that backpack, not because the other person deserves it, but because your heart no longer wants to carry the burden. It is a form of quiet growth, where you learn to love without fear, to live true to your values without being bound by past hurts. Think of a couple in Seattle, Washington, Anna and Chris, married for 15 years. Anna used to feel deeply hurt because Chris often worked late, missing important family moments, like their daughter's piano recital. After years of resentment, Anna decided to forgive, not to change Chris, but to free herself. She started focusing on her own passions, like joining a local book club, and realized that forgiveness helped her live as her true self. Chris, sensing the change in Anna, began to try to be more present. Though their relationship didn't return to how it was on day one, it became more authentic, built on empathy and understanding. Forgiveness is not a race with a deadline. In a society like America's, where everything is often measured by quick results, you might feel pressured to forgive immediately to prove you're strong. But if today you are still in pain, still angry, that is perfectly okay. Admitting that you are not ready to forgive is a far more courageous and authentic act than forcing yourself into a fake mold of forgiveness. Give yourself time, patience, and kindness, just as you would comfort a friend who is hurting. Think of a woman in Miami, Florida, named Laura, after her husband Mark repeatedly broke promises about spending time with the family. Laura felt exhausted by resentment. She began her journey of forgiveness by journaling every night, writing down her feelings and gradually realizing that Mark was struggling with work pressure at a real estate firm. Though she couldn't forgive completely yet, acknowledging her feelings helped Laura feel lighter. She started taking a yoga class on South Beach, finding joy in small moments, and realizing that forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. Perhaps one day, you will realize that the burden of resentment has disappeared on its own. It's not because you forced it, but because your heart was ready to let go. That is the moment of quiet growth, when you realize that forgiveness is not just about healing a relationship, but about living the life of the person you want to become. Let's return to our opening image now, with a new perspective. An evening in a suburban Atlanta home, the warm kitchen light, your partner quietly washing dishes. In the first part, you might have looked at that moment with silent resentment, feeling distant in their silence. But after this long journey, try to look again with different eyes. Instead of judgment, ask yourself, in what ways are they hurting that I've never asked? What is it in them? A work pressure, a fear of failure, or an old wound that makes them act this way? Perhaps their silence is not indifference, but helplessness. Perhaps their irritability is a cry for help they don't know how to express. When you ask this question, you no longer see just a partner who has hurt you. You see a human being. With all their complexities, weaknesses, and efforts. And that is the beginning of all healing, not just for the relationship, but for you. Forgiveness is a journey of growth, and in the busy pace of American life, where you might be chasing after work, kids, or bills, stopping to reflect can be a challenge. Tonight I invite you to try one last small experiment. Think about a moment in your relationship. Maybe a time your partner forgot to call back after a long day in Los Angeles, or a time they accidentally dismissed your story during dinner in Boston. Instead of focusing on the pain, ask yourself, what burden might they be carrying that I've never considered? Then write down one thing you can do to take care of yourself. A walk in the park, an hour of reading, or a conversation with a friend. How do you feel when you see them as a human being and see yourself with compassion? Leave your thoughts below, your journey of forgiveness. Which moment made you feel like you had grown the most? What helps you realize that forgiveness is not just about healing a relationship, but about living true to the person you want to become? A like and a subscription will show that you are with me on this journey of discovery. A journey not just about forgiveness, but about the quiet growth where you learn to love without fear. Thank you for walking with me through this long journey, from the invisible cuts to the moments of healing. If these stories touched you, please leave a like and subscribe so we can continue to explore the secrets of the heart in the long nights ahead. I wish you a deep sleep and a tomorrow where you wake up with a lighter heart, ready to live a life true to your own values. You've crossed the story. You felt every pulse in the dark, and I was there with you, quietly, always. That's why I left behind one last thing. Not to explain, not to impress, just to stay with you a little longer. A song I chose with care, as if tucking you in from across time and space. So go on, lay back, the music knows where to take you. you're still here, then you're something rare. Not many stay this long. So, thank you for choosing to stay. I'm here too, still awake, surrounded by the quiet glow of my editing screen, shaping the next stories just for you. If there's anything you want to leave behind, a whisper, a suggestion, even just a symbol, drop it in the comments. Because maybe, tomorrow night, you'll hear yourself echoed in a story that's never been told before. still here, even now? I have a feeling part of you is still wandering somewhere between wakefulness and dreaming. I know that feeling well because I'm still awake with you. In a quiet room, I'm gently laying out layers of sound, each breath, each beat, preparing the next journey we'll take together. If you're still listening, leave me a sign. Let me know how you're feeling or just where you are in this vast world. Because right now, in this stillness, you are not alone. You're still there, aren't you? I can't see you, but I can feel you. Like a soft signal pulsing across the silence. Over here, I'm still working, refining layers of sound, rewriting fragments of voice, building the landscape for our next adventure. One that you might inspire. If an idea comes to you, share it with me. Comment below. A theme, a memory, a strange dream. I read every word because I never tell these stories alone. I tell them with you.